So Harry Dent is the author of Zero Hour. He's an economist, Harvard MBA. I mean, he's written numerous best-selling books. He has called the crashes of the past eerily accurately, seemingly every time. He is calling for a massive crash coming in 2021, 22. You actually believe, last we spoke, you said in the next 45 to 60 days it could happen.
Yes.
Okay.
One of my key turning points has been mid to late February and March, similar to the top last year and the top of the last major tech bubble in early 2000. And also May to June is another major turning point.
Okay.
I think it's more likely to happen on this first one.
Okay. And you base these on, the cycles of an economy. And I believe in the Kondrackian wave, and I believe in these cycles. It repeats itself. But I want to talk to you not about the super bubble cycle, which you're saying is going to be like Great Depression, and it's going to happen in between now and 2022, but also the 250-year revolution cycle. We're approaching 250 years, and every 250 years there's massive revolutions. What do you mean by that? How is that shaping up, or what do we look for on that?
Well, let me tell you, the last two big ones, and still in Europe, huge Protestant revolution, early 1500s, Catholic Church had gone down to religion. They controlled politics, finance, everything. And that revolution was about bringing an alternative church, and the church, and that is still today. The difference in incomes and things between Protestant and Catholic Europe are very substantial. So that that didn't eliminate the Catholic Church, just brought it down to appropriate power. The next one, we all know, the American Revolution. Monarchs ruled the world everywhere, and we were the first ones to say, I'm sorry, folks. We think people can make better, and we invented democracy. The date was 1776, the same year that Adam Smith published Wealth of Nations, Free Market Capitalism, The Invisible Hand, and the same date the steam engine was patented perfectly in the Industrial Revolution. That was the biggest turning point, Glenn, in history. The biggest bang made the agricultural revolution like no. Now, then comes my 500 years. That's the 250-year cycle. We are coming on the next one right here, 2008 to 2025, roughly. And this one, I think, is about what is the top-down power that is the most obvious today around the world. I call it central banks.
Yeah.
Central banks now have taken over free market capitalism. They set interest rates. They drive bonds up and interest rates down. They drive stocks up continually. We can't have a recession. No more free market capital. We're going to run the economy like a machine because we, in our academic wisdom, and tell me one central banker it looks like they've ever run a business, okay? None, okay? And this is what's created this great bubble and a great disconnect. So I think when this bubble bursts, right in the middle of this 250-year cycle, central banks' entire role will be questioned. They will be relegated down to emergency funding during crises, not driving the economy, setting all these things. And the economy goes back to bottoms-up management. So
how does that happen? Because the central bank, I mean, honestly, we know who the Federal Reserve is just because of the banks that weren't eliminated. They're the banks that were too big, to fail. So there's only a handful of banks, real banks, left. They've been destroyed. The others. So how do we go back and just this system gets destroyed? Do we start new local banks, or what happens?
Well, basically, first of all, for any revolution to happen, the old has to start failing. Okay, we started failing in 2008. The central banks used that as an excuse to step in higher. The big banks got even bigger, and now they say, oh, they're all capitalized and stuff. Baloney. We've got more bad loans, more zombie companies than ever, and all it's going to take is a deep enough downturn to expose that. So these big banks are going to lose power and credibility, but who loses the most credibility is the head, I call him pusher, the Fed, Federal Reserve, and all the key, the ECB, Bank of Japan, China don't even. China's a whole nother discussion. They don't print money; they print condos, which is even more dangerous. They just build stuff for nobody, guaranteed by their central bank. Okay, the central bank doesn't print money. They just tell everybody, build over what you want, and we'll cover you. So that's even worse. So they're going to lose credibility, Glenn. What happens? These institutions have to lose credibility, and then people have to ask, or something else has to step in. We have to let that. The way to cure all this and come to reality, Glenn, is let that bubble burst. We've been fighting it since 2008.
They're going to fight it again. I'm telling you, Harry.
They're going to fight it, and they're going to lose because they.
I hope you're right.
Here's my forecast, Glenn. Very simple. Next crash. Already ordained. Every crash has taken us to new lows, even though we go to new highs with more stimulus. The next new low is down 45% on the S&P, down 50% or more in stock. That's when people are finally going to get, no matter how much money these central banks print and the government gives stimulus, we keep going down. Something's wrong. And that downturn would be enough to start hurting companies and hurting banks. So I think you get a reaction that just keeps it's a snowball effect. So that's.
Can I just go on the record with you, Harry? And I hate to do this because you are much more wise than I am on these things. But I'd like to, on the record, disagree with you respectfully that I think, that cycle isn't finished until they push it up one more hill. And that is at the global level. They're going to take all of the failed industries, all of the failed companies, all of the failed banks, all of the failed policies of interventionism and all of that, and roll that up the hill one more time and say, but it'll work at a global scale. And then it's destroyed.
Glenn, I could see that. I have a second option, too, that we just be like Japan and just keep blowing up more until we get to where we never grow again. And that's the price. We don't have as big a crash or as deep of a depression, but we go into mediocrity. And I could see that happening. But I'm telling you, if that happens, I don't see it lasting past the end of 2021. I think 2023, this bubble has been pushed back so far. It's gotten so extreme. Every indicator from the past, when these IPOs coming out and doubling, GameStop going up 400 points in one day when it's a $20 stock. And, everything is ringing the bells. There's points. I tell people bubbles usually have a trigger to pop them, but they don't even need that. The 2000 bubble, the first tech bubble, just like this one, only this is way worse. There was no recession, no slowdown in the economy. It just started bursting because it was crazy.
Yeah, it was pets.com.
There's a point, Glenn, when the smart money who really does control too much with too much leverage, but they're still in control, when they decide this is over, it's over. And I think we're getting close to that. But again, I could see your scenario. I think that is because that's right. There's always a new grander stimulus program. But I'm telling you, when they're going to have to print. I could see them printing 10 trillion next time, instead of 4 trillion.
Oh,
here. Yeah. And there's a point, though, when people say, okay, now we're printing our whole GDP every year just to grow at 1.5%. There's a point where even the dumbest person high on crack can see, oh, this isn't working. That's what it takes. Because everybody's high on this bubble. That's why it's hard for people to see it. They're not stupid. There's so many benefits. Everybody's getting a 3% mortgage instead of 6%. They're getting a 2% car loan instead of 7%. Their stocks, their home, whatever they do own of financial assets. And for everyday people, it's the home more. And for rich people, it's more stocks and financial assets. You're just getting a free lunch poured over your head.
Harry, I only have a minute, but I'd like to see if you could answer this question, at least vaguely. The London Central Bank came out and said that they're expecting reverse mortgage rates, so negative mortgage rates, in the next 45 days. The average person is not going to see that, right? That's just for the central bank loaning it to the bank.
Well, but that should dribble down. That should dribble down to some degree. But how desperate is that, Glenn? I mean, come on. When you go interest rates, it's one thing 0. which is insane. With zero rates, people will make bad investments with no hurdle, and a negative rate seem worse. This is distorting free market capitalism, and it is going to end because it's going to fail. Like you said, it could be a year. I think it fails sooner than you do, but I could see your scenario, no question.
Harry, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Glad to hear you.
Remember, HarryDent.com, free newsletter, and a free report on the Bitcoin bubble on March 1st if you just sign up for that today. HarryDent.com.
Thank you very much, Harry. I appreciate it. HarryDent.com. Okay. He is really well versed and worth reading and following.